get to the speech.
I just started that. Okay.
I have this theory that the human brain is only capable of holding so much information in a way that we can access easily. We all have different capacities in two parts of our memory. Short-term storage that we can easily access, and long-term storage that's tougher to get to, kind of like the file cabinet next to your knee in the office and the cardboard cartons down in the basement. I see memories in the brain like liquid in a full funnel. Keep adding new information at the top and it pushes out all the older stuff down at the bottom to kind of a diverter, sort of a manifold. On one side, information gets sent to the cardboard cartons in the basement, and on the other side, it just disappears into oblivion, never to be retrieved. My feeling is that in the right circumstances, I could go down into that basement of my memory and find the cardboard box with all of the memories of my first day of kindergarten. But I am never going to remember how to do calculus. Now, I know I'm not the only person to see memories this way. There's excellent scientific proof of my long-held theory, something I've believed since I was a kid, and it's in the 2015 animated Pixar movie called Inside Out. If you haven't seen it, you should. The graphics to prove my theory are excellent. I think also that a similar thing happens across generations. Every technological or scientific advance adds to the amount you have to learn for each generation. So each global event, or each technological advance, gives us new ways to learn how to be human. So this generation of school children has to learn things like computer programming and the complex workings of imperialism, patriarchy, and the critical consumption of media. Right? Children learn this in elementary school. And all that stuff goes into the big cultural funnel of information we are teaching to kids. So something has to go away at the bottom to that diverter. Less useful stuff, like writing in cursive or using old equipment like typewriters and wall phones, or even really knowing what those things are. And sadly, some of the more useful stuff also goes away, like how to occupy your free time without picking up a cell phone. When I was a kid, my parents taught me a lot. They taught me how to use my time efficiently, how to work hard, and that anything can be fixed. They taught me to manage money, to cook and eat healthfully, to respect my elders, and the value of faith in something. They didn't teach me fine table manners or the joy of words or the power of studying. I had to figure those things out on my own. As my mother always says, you can't give what you don't have and you can't teach what you don't know. And going back to my theory, there's only so much information that you can add to the funnel. Add more and something has to go away. One of the things my parents did not teach me is gardening. My father built houses for a living until he retired. He worked with his body physically, and summer was the busiest, hardest time of the year for him. The last thing in the world he wanted to come home to was more physical work out in the yard. So the foundation shrubs that were little 18-inch high things when we moved in were twice as tall as the house when we moved out 10 years later. They were never, ever pruned. And the first thing the new owners did was rip them out, which I'm sure was a huge task. They were beyond pruning. Now, I'm not faulting my parents for not teaching me gardening. I mean, you can't give what you don't have, right? In every generation, based on global events, technological advances, and the march of time, has different priorities. Now, those priorities don't apply to every single person, but they apply to enough people that they cause you to notice trends. Cole Matheson, a 20-something writer of clickbait, recently published a list of 7 things younger folks don't know because nobody ever taught them. I thought this list was really interesting. Writing thank you notes that sound human. Calling businesses to ask questions like, are you open? Maintaining things before they break. And fixing them when they do break without having to look to YouTube videos. Reading analog clocks instantly. I guess the implication is that they can read them, but it takes a while. Knowing the names of neighbors. Making small talk with strangers. So is Cole Matheson an expert? I don't know. The truth is, I don't even know if he's a real person and not just some made-up AI bot. Does everything on this list apply to every single person younger than a certain age? Absolutely not. But a lot of that list rings true, especially when my Gabby, my daughter of the heart, tells me how many of her friends freeze and panic when anybody they don't know talks to them. Or heaven forbid, calls them on the phone without making an appointment in advance. Gabby is an excellent new mom, but she couldn't read an analog clock if her baby's life depended on it. Because we didn't teach her. Like my parents didn't teach me to garden. As a consequence of never learning to garden, I never paid much attention to my yard until my 6th house. It was my first house that didn't require any work, so I could look to the yard. But the yard was full of fruit trees, all of which were big, woody, and old, and would bear like 2 apricots or 3 grapefruit a year. Everyone told me to prune. I could only remember those enormous, scary shrubs in front of the house from childhood, so I panicked a little bit and did what I do. And that was I read a book. It was a brand new book at the time called The Complete Gardener by Monty Don, who is often called England's favorite gardener. Pruning, I learned, is how trees stay healthy. If you cut away all the dead branches and all the branches that are growing too fast, the suckers, you'll keep the nutrients and energy going to the healthiest branches, helping them bear more fruit. And if you cut away the branches growing toward the center of the tree, you'll keep light going deep into the plant while preventing branches from rubbing against each other and causing bruising and perhaps disease. So there's an art to pruning fruit trees, I've discovered. Pruning any trees. You have to use sharp tools and act decisively, like a martial artist. And timing is everything. Monty Don is famous for saying, if it flowers before June, do not prune. But that isn't always true. There are exceptions. Different trees and shrubs are pruned at different times of the year, and you have to know when to prune. You have to know what to keep, what to get rid of, and when to make the decision. So I've discovered, like Barbara has, that pruning is exactly like life. I've learned that the more I cut away all the things that are dead or dying or inhibiting growth, the more I can focus on the healthy parts of my life, the parts that allow me and the people I love to thrive. So I think of it this way. When I'm judicious about what I say no to, I can be much more confident in the things that I say yes to. Pruning, despite the fact that a huge pile of branches can look like merciless destruction, is in fact a very gentle art. James K. A. Smith is a theologian who knows a thing about gentle arts. He's a professor of philosophy at Calvin University in Grand Rapids, Michigan. In his book, You Are What You Love, The Spiritual Power of Habit, he talks about the ways in which the little acts that we engage in every day, things that we give our time and attention to, are not only the things that we love, but they become the things that we value. The little actions that take up our time every day without fail become the rituals that define us as individuals. The way that the rituals that we engage in here in the sanctuary define us as a spiritual community. He says that everyday habits like taking a bit of ice cream after dinner, or brushing your teeth, or reading poetry, or meditating, or playing games on your phone, or using the self-checkout at the grocery store to avoid people are, in fact, everyday liturgies, rituals that shape and define values. That's exactly why I think it's important to teach gentle arts to each other, not just to the children and young folks among us, but to each other. Gentle arts like cooking for one another, speaking thoughtfully in shared spaces. Gentle arts like self-reflection or prayer. All of them can teach us to slow down and pay attention to what is really important. They can teach us about life and how to give our attention to the things that really matter, the things that allow us to thrive, individually and collectively. It's important that we teach each other gentle arts like knowing our neighbors, making small talk with people we encounter, maintaining things, including relationships, before they break. Fixing things, including relationships, instead of throwing them out. Of course, focusing on these things will require letting go of something else, sending it out the bottom of the funnel to be diverted to long-term memory or out into the cosmos, never to be seen again. Maybe those things that go away are things like doom scrolling. That's up to you. What you let go of is up to you, but I guarantee you, making the decision, pruning, is worth the effort. May it be so.